Welcome to another episode of Life Stories with Marty. I'm Marty here in Melbourne, and I'm very excited about this because special guest, Irish singer, entertainer, and TV presenter Daniel O'Donnell, the famous Daniel O'Donnell, is coming on now. So we're going to have a chat with Daniel and go into his life stories. Daniel, welcome to the show. You're over in Ireland. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
Thanks very much, Martin. I'm sorry it's taken us so long to get the time to do this, and sorry that it's after Michael's time. Of course, Michael was the one who made the initial contact about doing this, but he's well remembered.
He is indeed, Daniel. And just for our listeners here and all over the world, is we are talking about our colleague and friend from Moral Injury International, and Daniel Newman. Daniel did a lovely message, which the family and all the friends really appreciated for Michael Lyons' funeral. We lost him, and Daniel. I had met Daniel in the 1980s. I used to go to his club. We used to go watch him all the time, Daniel, watch you all the time. And I thought it was lovely because you knew if there was girls there, that's all the guys followed because they all went to see Daniel O'Donnell, and we knew they were there. But it's delighted to talk to you after all these years. I've seen you 20 times, I think, 20 to 25 times. But thank you, Daniel. And we're going to dedicate this, Daniel and myself, to Michael Lyons, because as Daniel just said there, alluded to, is that's how we got together after all these years.
Yes.
Daniel, it's an honor for me and a privilege to have you on the show. Now, I'm just going to start out, as this is your life stories. So I'm just going to start, what was it like growing up, your childhood in that beautiful Donegal in Ireland?
Well, I was born and brought up right out on the northwest coast of Ireland and County Donegal. We're right on the Atlantic,
Yeah.
and I come from a little village called Kincastle in County Donegal. And I mean, I'm very blessed, I suppose, that I'm still living only just about 3 miles from my home where I was brought up.
Yeah.
And I feel very, lucky to be able to do that. I mean, I grew up, and I suppose when I think back, I think we all look back maybe on our childhoods, maybe sometimes with rose-colored glasses, but I don't think my memories are very far from the reality. It was a very simple, but very rich childhood. Um, I was one of five, or I'm one of five. My sister Kathleen sadly passed away a couple of years ago. I'm the youngest of the five, and James was next older to me, and then Kathleen, Margaret, or Margot as she's known in the music business, and John is the eldest. And my mother and father, my father died in 1968 when I was only 6. So I suppose that was a very traumatic thing for the family. I can't say that it had a huge effect on me, or at least that I experienced, because I was too young.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that in now is because I suppose from there on in, it was very much my mother and me. James, who was next to me, when I was about 10, he went away to be a chef, and Kathleen was away working, and John drove Margaret. She was traveling at that time with bands. Her career was taking off in the late 60s into the early 70s. So from that point of view, I suppose my mother and I were in the house together, and there was a great bond with my mother. Everybody knew everybody where I came from, or where I come from. It's still the same today. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody interacts with everybody else. So that's the kind of childhood I grew up in, where all the neighbors was, any house, the door was never locked. So
Yeah.
every house was one that you accessed, regularly. And I worked then in the Cope spelled COPE, as in cooperative, as opposed to COOP.
Yeah.
It's the shop in the village. And I think about that now, and I suppose I wouldn't be allowed to do that now. I worked when I was in primary school, national school,
Yeah.
from 4 to 6 in the evening, and then all day Saturday, and the shop. So, that gave me a great connection with people as well. All these things, I think, are very important to how I ended up doing what I'm doing, and how I suppose feel comfortable, or felt comfortable doing all these things. But growing up at home was beautiful. We were beside the sea. Um, just it was unspoilt, and it was just lovely.
Well, you've certainly had a. I mean, I couldn't even fit in 40 minutes or an hour into your story. What, the obvious question, what made you go into, and I'll dovetail into that, what made you go into the music business, and what inspired you, and when was the first time you felt success? That you felt that
Well,
you'd done something? Because I know you worked
yeah,
very hard to get there. Go ahead,
yeah.
please.
Well, I suppose, I can't remember a time not singing, even as a child, and Margaret would say the same. I started singing in the choir at home, and still do that from time to time, especially at Christmas, which is lovely. And any Sunday or any weekend I'm home, I would go into the choir and sing with them. Um, I used to sing in the concerts, in the local hall as a child as well. And I probably was in my teens. We used to go to the local hotel. It was called Austin the Rossin, the Hotel of the Rosses. And
Yeah,
on the weekend, there was always music there. And it was a very family orientated gathering, the bit of dancing. It was all in the lounge in the
yeah,
hotel. And a local group called the Murrays, or La Scala, but the Murrays is what we called them. They played there. There was Margaret and Cahill and Kathleen were two sisters and a brother, and Mary was their niece. And they got people up to sing, and they would get me up to sing. And I think it was one night when I was with them singing. I don't know that I thought about it. Prior to that, I think I thought about I was going to go on to college, and maybe teaching, I think, was what I was thinking about doing
yeah.
in my teens. And I remember one night I was singing, and the people were dancing, and they were singing along, and they were smiling, and I loved it. And I thought at that moment, wouldn't this be a great way to spend your life?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think that thought ever left me. I did go on to college in Galway, and I was only there from September to Christmas. And I said to Margaret that I'll keep calling her Margaret, although people know her as Margot, but it's hard to get used to calling her Margot because she's Margaret in the family. Um, I said, that I would love to start singing. And then I traveled with her from the 28th of January 1981. I was with her then for 2 years. And I made my first record in 1983, which was called Stand Beside Me and My Donegal Shore. Was the two, it was a single, 45. And I I then started a group of my own that year in 1983 at home. And I don't know, the success, I suppose, didn't come until about 86. I mean, I thought at the end of 85 about not continuing because it was hard. There was very few people coming it was all dances then, of course.
Yeah,
Uh, very few people coming to the dances, even though I had the time with Margaret. When you start on your own, you have to make your own way. Um, and now the time with her was a great experience for me. It was nearly like an apprenticeship,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I could observe what it was like without any great demands on me. Singing a few songs, but there was no demand or onus on me. But then I recorded an album with Rich Records 84, 85, sort of, it was released. And even though it was released, I didn't realize it was getting a good bit of interest, because still there wasn't that many people coming to see us. And I went to see Mick Clerkin, who owned Ritz Records at the time, who the company was that the record was with. And I said, just out of courtesy, saying that I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue. And he then in turn said to me, that there was great interest and their album. And at that time, a friend of mine, Nan Moy, was doing my management and getting the bookings for me. But Nan was a neighbour of mine. She was helping me out. And I suppose neither of us knew how to go forward. And Mick was interested, to my amazement, I suppose, of getting more involved and maybe getting a different band. And he introduced me then to Sean Riley, who became my manager in January 86. And he was my manager for 30 years until he
Wow.
retired. And I think it was about 86. If there was a time, I went off the road in January 86 and then came back on in March. And I if I can just tell you one thing, we played in Cavan on New Year's Eve, 1985 going into 1986, and we got whatever was taken on the door. And like I think it was about £5 in at the time, and we got 60 something pounds. So that tells you how many people were there on a New Year's Eve. That's not great. And some of them didn't even pay the fiver if you only got 63. And so the following New Year's Eve, there was 1,600 people at us in Hilltown and County Down. So
Wow.
if you can just put that together. And then from about March 86, we started back. And I don't think once we started back, the first night in Ireland was in Milford. We started in St. Cyprian's Club in Broccoli, outside London, and that was good. I was kind of doing better in the UK, the places I went in Scotland, and the few places, you get because there was a lot of Irish living in
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
places at that time. There still are, but it's a different dynamic now, I suppose, as I'm sure it is there too. The Irish connection. I think the connection with Ireland is not as important to be connected with the people from Ireland away from home now as it was then, because people didn't have access to video calls like we do now, or,
Mhm.
they couldn't come home at the drop of a hat, which they can now. They can come home from the UK for a weekend, but generally people only come home once or twice. So a lot of people would go to all the dances. Anyway, that's why I'm saying about how I was doing better in England and Scotland at that time. So in March, then the first night was in Milford, in the Milford Inn, and I mean, the place was, you couldn't see a space on the floor. There was that many people,
Yeah.
and that I couldn't believe it. Um, from December to March, it's hard to just think what happened, but it was like somebody just flicked a switch. And then, just one thing led to another. I recorded, continued recording, and then songs got played on BBC Radio 2 in the UK. And, we started doing well there. And then first time we came to Australia to tour was 93.
Yep.
And we came a lot, and then started going to America and Canada, and I suppose, but the answer, I suppose, 86
Yeah.
was,
Yep.
I felt there was success, there was a difference.
You knew you didn't have to go look for another job. You felt comfortable.
Well, yes, I knew I would never have to work. Well, I
Yeah.
felt I would never have to
Oh, I
work.
think you
Yeah.
worked
And I
very
never
hard.
did. I never, Martin, even though people say about it's work, I never ever felt what I did was difficult. I never, sometimes I hear, singers and entertainers saying it's a difficult life. I cannot I cannot tap into that.
Yep.
I never ever felt what I did was difficult. I never thought it was, I mean, you get physically tired, but that's human nature. But I never ever didn't want to do it. You
What,
know,
what what
I
what I
never.
admire about you is I admire that you brought all the people there, and I must say, I was at a function last week, and my mother-in-law said, "I heard your interview with Daniel O'Donnell," and she goes, "I got his CD." They don't get CDs anymore, even it's on.
Mm,
I've got his CD, and they were delighted. But you
mm.
didn't. You influenced, like we were talking about Michael Lyons, but you really, when you came to Australia and you'd done a tour last year, Australia, New Zealand, is like you talked earlier. There's so many Irish within these, and obviously you've got Canada, everything. When are you going to slow down a little bit, or you're not going to slow down?
Well, I have slowed down a little bit, I have to say. I mean, I'm not doing nearly as many shows. And I suppose in the recent past, I've really been evaluating, because I'm 63 now. I don't feel old. I don't think 63
Well, you
is
don't
old.
look
But
old.
at the same time, you have to think going forward, what way are you going to go forward? And I suppose it is lovely to have, I mean, at the minute I'm in Banbridge in County Down, um, here with Siobhan and Gavin and our grandchildren. And it's just lovely to have the time to spend with them. So that's how my life is. I mean, I still love doing the shows. Last week we'd recorded TV shows for Opry Le Daniel, it's called, or Opry with Daniel. It's on on the Irish channel TG Car, and that goes out here. And in fact, anywhere in the world, people can type in TG4.
Yeah.
It comes up in the Irish language, but if they put in the search bar Opry, Opry, and then Daniel, Opry Le Daniel, you'll be able to watch these shows anywhere. There's a whole, I mean, there's loads and loads of shows on. If you go on to the TG4 player and type on the bar Opry Le Daniel, Opry, people can watch them for free. They're open to the world, and you could watch it just if people wanted to see. And there's a load of different singers. There's loads of great shows. Like we did a special with Charlie Pride, which was
Hmm.
super. Before he passed away, not long before he passed away, a few years. Big Tom, we had one with Margaret, we did one with Philomena Begley, and loads of the Irish singers have been on, and other people from other countries. Crystal Gale came over and did one, and we did tributes to different people. This year we did a tribute to John Denver's music. And so it's just a nice thing. But anyway, that's what I was doing last week. Magella, I'm going back now to Tenerife. We spent a bit of time in Tenerife, which is in the Canary Islands in the winter time. So
Yeah.
I'm going back there, and going. Magella is there, and I'm spending another couple of weeks there before I come back, and then we start touring in the UK. We have about 5 or 6 shows in the UK, then 5 or 6 in Ireland, and then we go to America and Canada, and that'll take us up to the middle of June. But then I have nearly the whole summer off here. I'm doing a few things. I'm involved with the Mary from Low Festival, which I give a bit of time to, and we have a few different things, but nothing major. And at the end of August, we do 3 shows in Killarney,
Oh,
at the
beautiful.
IMEC Arena and the Glen Eagle, in Killarney. And then in October, again, we're in the UK, and in no, the end of October, November, we go and do shows in America again. But that's more or less all I'm doing this year, show wise. I record a bit as well. And next year, I'm cutting down a wee bit more. So I suppose the answer is I am cutting down
Yeah.
to the touring. Now, I don't know about Australia. the promoters, difficult now to get promoter to do the shows. And whereas we can go to the UK and do the show ourselves, it's just too far to go to Australia and New Zealand without it being organised.
Yeah,
So
correct.
I can't say to you now when or if we'll get back to Australia or New Zealand.
Well, for our listeners, we'll keep in touch with Daniel. Maybe he
Mm.
will come back. I don't want to disappoint our viewers in Australia, New Zealand,
Yeah,
Asian
well,
America,
hopefully. I mean, I would
Australia.
love to. I would love to.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You never know.
Now, you've won so many awards. Like, you have awards. I couldn't keep up with all of them. You say you received the MBE. You had the Freedom of Donegal in the Hall of Fame, entertainment, and your records on British ones, I believe, have you've been in the charts almost consistent since 1984 in the music ones. Give us a little bit on that.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've I didn't set out. I suppose I didn't have a plan of what I wanted to do other than I wanted to sing. I didn't know that I would end up traveling so many places. I didn't know that I would get to do it at the level. And I've got to do some terrific shows. And I mean, all the concerts are great, but I've got to do lovely inspirational shows and Christmas shows, and got to do the rock and roll show, and then numerous shows have been recorded that we've put out on television. Um, I mean, the awards, the albums, the chart success is in the UK. We've had an album and the charts at some time every year since 1988.
That's right.
And yeah, which is it's amazing, really. I would never have thought that. And I've just recorded again. There'll be an album out. But as you say, now, the CDs, like there will be a CD this year, but going forward, the record company are talking, our CDs needed, which is amazing, like when
Yeah.
we were growing up, you loved holding the album, the
The
LP.
album, and even when it's scratched, you still
Yeah.
loved it.
But it was something about reading, about what was written on the back of it and the front of it and the sleeve notes and all of that kind of thing. And the CD then would have a little booklet in it. But now the cars, if you want a CD player in the car, you have to ask for it.
Mm.
So I suppose um, it's hard to know going forward what way the charts will work out. But yes, I mean, I got the MBE in 2002 from which was lovely. It's an honorary MBE because I'm not British, obviously, and I didn't even know I could get the like of it. But I got an honorary MBE, which was tremendous. I mean, it was given to me for services to music. And when I was contacted about it, when I realized this was for real, I couldn't figure out why I would get it, and I was told that people had written to, whether it's was the palace or whether it's to the, I don't know, the government, who they write to, not necessarily collectively but individually, to see could I be honored in some way on their behalf because the music meant so much to them. And I just was delighted. I mean, it was given on Valentine's Day 2002 at the ambassador's residence in Dublin, and as he was then, Prince Charles, now the King,
Yes.
was there and presented. There was five of us who got awards who were Irish, and you only go to the palace if it's a knighthood, if you're not British or not from the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And because I got it in Dublin, but it was lovely. I mean, I've been on This Is Your Life. That's something too. That's a TV show. Now, I'm sure you had a version of it there in Australia at some time. 2. It's where they do, as you said at the beginning of this, so this is your life. I was on that. Michael Aspel was the presenter when I was on
That
it.
was Michael
And
Andrews, was it? Was it?
no, Eamon Andrews started it.
Eamon
But when
Andrews,
I,
I
when
beg your
I was
pardon.
on, Michael Aspel was the presenter. Eamon had
Yes.
passed away by then. But Michael Aspel, and I mean, I watched that show religiously, loved it, and used to wonder, did people know that they were going to be on? And I remember, I mean, I was in the London Palladium doing the Sunday night at the London Palladium, and there was a lot of people on. Engelbert Humperdinck was on the show, and I remember when Michael Aspel came onto the stage, I stood back to get a good look at Engelbert to see how he would react when Michael Aspel would, because I was sure it was him he was going to surprise. And I couldn't believe when he walked towards me, that it was my surprise. So that was something that I never thought. I was absolutely thrilled to be honoured. Donegal Person of the Year was, and always will be the the most cherished award that I got. I got that in
Wow.
1989. I wish I was getting it now. I was only 29. I was the youngest
Yeah.
ever to get it. I'm still the youngest now. I don't know if there'll be anybody younger or not. Um,
We'll have to get onto them and see if we can get another one now.
Oh, I think no. I think I think you can only get it once, but it really was. It was just great to be honoured by the home county, and I mean I've got numerous things. I've been Entertainer of the Year in Ireland a
Yes.
number of times, and
You're
country
taking all my
awards.
questions here off me. I can
I
just tick the
know,
box.
I know, but lots of things. So I've been very lucky. I couldn't have done any of it without the support of the people, you know, because if people didn't latch on to what I was doing, I mean, in 1985, as I said, I thought I wouldn't continue. So I've been very, very, very well supported by people. I mean, um, some people have been following what I've done for all of the years.
Oh,
When they go,
absolutely.
yeah, there's one woman that I met at Christmas, that was in the rag the first night, and there's other people too, but that I know was in the rag in Thurles where I played with Margaret on the 28th of January. And Mary Carey, she was at a concert we did in down in Rathdowney in County Laois, and she now is, I think it's 92 or 93, and she was there, and she was at the very first night that I stepped on stage. So it goes back. I know people from all the years. I suppose the fact of getting to know people is a lovely thing, because I've always been able to meet people after the shows, and I still do that because it's easy. I mean, people say, well, why do you do it now when you don't have to? I don't have to do anything. I never did have to do that, but I enjoyed it. I think no matter what I would have done, Martin, the interaction with people would have been the real, the essence of it. When I'm asked, and you might say to me at some point in this chat, where has the nicest place you've ever been? And when I'm asked that question, my mind always goes to, who did I meet?
That's a
You know,
very good point.
yeah, I've been in lovely places. I mean, you can't, but you can't walk down in Sydney, down to Circular Quay, and stand and look at the Opera House and look at the Harbour Bridge and not be amazed.
Yeah, yeah,
I've stood looking out at Alcatraz in San Francisco. I've I've been on cruises, and we've been, different places. We went round some of Australia. We went round New Zealand. Beautiful scenery, and we've
yeah.
done, in Europe. There's some beautiful places that I've been, but it's always the people that I meet
Yep.
that makes the visit. So I always say, if you go somewhere and meet nobody, you might as well not have gone.
Well, I actually very like that point. That's exactly right. You can go anywhere, but it's the people that make it, whether you're on a
Mm.
cruise, on a
Yeah.
train, in a taxi, the taxi driver,
Mm.
whatever it is. I
Yeah.
agree 100%, Daniel.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so I wanted to ask you there is if I can go in Magella, which you're talking about, and you've done a lot. I love the bed and breakfast one you've done. That was one of my favorites, and I know a lot of my family love that. Humor, all good stuff in it. Is Magella now? She went through, which I've got obviously three ex-wives and five kids. Two more, and I'm done, Daniel. I'm telling you that now. But but she had breast cancer. So if you don't mind me asking, what was that like? Because it's not just the person that's going through, which is difficult. I know through that is it's the family members that go
Yeah.
through it. So how did you deal mentally with that?
Well, it was a great shock at the time,
Yeah.
um, because I suppose it affects so many families. But almost before it knocks on your own door, you don't think about it coming.
Mhm.
And in fact, I had been involved with the Relay for Life, which is a cancer charity raising money for
Mm.
research and services. In 2012, had written a song with Mark Roberts. In fact, Mark just sent me a text saying, that it's 2012 today. We wrote this song. I'll see this journey through. And then in 2013, Magella was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was a huge shock. Now, Magella was very strong in her approach to it, and she just sort of accepted it as well as she could, and she was very lucky from the onset that she was told it was early, that it was treatable, and that although you have to take the journey because she had to have chemotherapy, which that's really when you know you're sick,
Yeah.
with cancer, when you have treatment. I think that the day that she was told, or that we were told she would have treatment, was a bigger shock nearly than the day that she was told she had cancer, because when you have the cancer and you're going to have dealt with it, and then to think that there's a chance of it going somewhere else, that's the precautionary thing of chemotherapy. So yes, it was a huge shock. I mean, I remember driving out from the hospital, and I had been off for a few months, taking a wee break. Funny enough, in 2013, one of the first times I ever really did it.
Yeah.
And I was just going back on the road, and I said to Magella, we drove out, just out of the thing. Magella was driving, I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I says, I'll cancel. And immediately she says, no, nothing is to be cancelled. She says, if we start cancelling and changing, she says, cancer's in charge. But
Oh,
she said, if we continue to do everything as we're doing it, we're in charge.
wow.
So that was how it was. I mean, I was away when Magella then got the brainwave to go on the Late Late Show, which is a TV show here
Yeah.
in Ireland, and have her head shaved for the Cancer Society, the Irish Cancer Association, and or society. I never know if there's a society or association. I
Yeah.
should know, but I'm involved a lot with it. Um, and I was actually away when she did that. I watched that on on video phone, somebody holding it to the television, and she just started her chemotherapy, and she was going to lose her hair, and she felt she had this brainwave. And the strange thing about that, or the amazing thing about that, was that year, 2013, Daffodil Days in March here. And they had a really bad day. Daffodil Day is the day they raise, I'm not sure if that's is a worldwide thing or not for cancer, but certainly in Ireland they have the Daffodil Day to raise
Yeah.
money. And it's the biggest fundraiser. And that day they had a really bad storm. And there were about 700,000 less than what they would normally have got. And do you know that Magella's head shave raised 700,000?
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
about, over the period that it was like, after the weekend was over, it was 250,000, and then it eventually raised over seven. So it was like, it's strange how these things happen. Why do people end up doing things that they do, and why are people in positions that they are? Why celebrities that, or people that, I shouldn't even say celebrities, because Magella wouldn't at that time have considered herself a celebrity. I don't even know if she does now. I, I don't even know, sometimes celebrity is just the word they put on us, but we don't feel that way. But I suppose when somebody has notoriety, has something wrong with them, and they're able to do something, people hear it louder, and
Well,
are
I
able to
think I
go.
think it is, Daniel, is what you're saying there. Is with Magella is the fact that she's speaking out because people think they just have it, but when they do see, and she is a celebrity,
Mm.
when she does speak out, it makes other people feel good.
Yeah, yeah, and then she was approached then to write a book, and she wasn't really wanting to write the book. And I said to her, I said, maybe the book, I said, will help people, and Magella too, unfortunately, suffers greatly with mental health issues as well. And so she talked about that as well, and publicly, and that seems maybe even more so than the cancer diagnosis has, I suppose it helps people, because when you're in that situation too, if you see somebody that has, I suppose, in your eyes, everything, and they have these issues, maybe if you're sitting alone with your situation, you think, well, if they have it, you know, it's not, it's anybody can get this, So, yeah, she wrote the book, and the book was a huge success.
Can you shout
But
out the name of the book for us, please?
it's called "It's All in the Head." She had it. It's all in the head. That's the name she had in it. It's all in the head, and meaning that it's all how you approach it.
Correct.
It's all how you approach it. Now, she still has to, watch what she does, her mental health. Thank God her physical health is good, but mental health is an ongoing struggle for people. Thanks be to God, and I'm touching the door here. I never had any issue with mental health issues, but I know from living with Magella, it's a terrible, terrible illness that
Well, I think
never
my mother
fully
had
goes
that.
away. Never
My
fully
mother
goes
had
away.
that, Daniel, as you know, which
Mm,
led to attempted murder, suicide on
mm,
us children, and obviously in the end. But that's mental health. But people,
yeah.
I always say, Daniel, is if you see someone coming in a wheelchair, and I've got a friend of mine, people stand out of the way, they open the door. But if you ever to walk, they don't see what's in the head there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the difference.
But now listen, she's good. I'm
Yeah.
not saying she's not good, but
No, no, no.
it's just that I suppose she how you were saying, how did it affect me? I think Magella's strength helped me greatly, I have to say that, but I think that the importance is that, people, eh, I'm still involved, we're still involved with Relay for Life in Donegal, and it'll happen again in May this year. And, we always urge people when they can to get involved, and there could never be enough money raised for cancer research either,
Mhm.
and any of these charities, I just did something last week for the Alzheimer's. They have a tea day in May, because all of these things, when families are affected, the services that they avail of, they are invaluable. for the work that the people do for people, in these situations is you just can't put a price on it.
You can't, Daniel, and you speak very nice. I want to ask you a question: is what gives you, or where did you get it from? And I've met you over the year. You're very, uh, you seem very relaxed. You're very hospitable to everyone. You've got a lot of love in there, and I know with your fans because I've read so much. With your fans, you're very loyal. Is Where do you get that from?
Well, I suppose I'm lucky. My makeup, I suppose, is fairly calm. I'm supposed to be like my father. My father, as I said, died very young, so I didn't really know him, but I'm supposed to be the same temperament as him. I suppose that comes, it's a hereditary thing.
Yeah,
Um, I think where I was brought up had a huge part to play, that everybody knows everybody and everybody knew everybody. And I think that the interaction with people, what I do is just an extension of what I did growing up, that's just so it's hard to say why or how I am the way I am. I thank God that I am the way I am, very little ruffles me. They used to
yeah,
joke, that I was very, very,
laid back.
laid back, I suppose. But
Yeah.
but I I I can listen. I feel very blessed to be as I am.
Well, I just think you're an absolutely wonderful man, and hopefully next time you come to Australia, we get to meet in person.
Please God.
But just lovely talking to you. And I want to finish off with a question. There now is like, what has Donegal, has that changed because you go overseas and you go on tours since your lifetime? Has that changed? Has Ireland changed for our listeners?
Oh
Has
God. Yeah. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Yes, of course, Ireland has changed. I think though Ireland has changed. We can't live back in the days when it was donkey and cart and no
Yeah,
electricity.
yeah,
That's not progress is progress. But I think the essence of Ireland, when we're all together, when we gather together at home, we still have the same fun and the same
yeah,
humor and everything that we had, growing up. We still, there's still a great connection. There's still, if something is wrong, and just recently, and the family, sadly, my brother John, my eldest brother, and his wife Bridget, they lost their eldest son, who would have been the eldest grandchild of my mother. He died in January, he had cancer, and he died. He was only 47. And the community came together like you wouldn't believe
yeah,
to lift the family up, his wife and his children, and my brother and his wife, to lift them up. And they, honestly, it was almost like a wave that or that two hands folded, and they let them sit in the palm of their hands, for as long as they could. So when you have community like that, it's just amazing. And we have that, especially where we come from in Donegal. If there's somebody in need, or somebody's sick, or the community just, it's like they fold in together, and whatever needs to be done is done. So, I travel the world, and I'm grateful to see it, but I'm happy to come home.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like to lay your head in. Now,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we'll put at the end of this show with the TG4, so they go on
Yes,
and
well,
put your
I'm talking to you. You're in Melbourne today, and
yeah.
we're waiting on news from Melbourne today, tomorrow, or very soon, that our grandchild is born there. Michael and his wife live in Melbourne, and we're just waiting. Their first baby is due these days, so we're waiting on a wee boy or a wee girl to arrive
And
in
was it Michael
Melbourne.
and
Michael and Sarah.
Sarah? Well, we shout
Yeah.
out to Michael and Sarah, and I'm in Melbourne, guys. So
Yes. And
isn't that
they're in
wonderful? So
Melbourne.
any day, did they know what they're expecting?
No, they don't, which is lovely. All too
Yes.
often now people know everything, but they chose not to find out. And we're waiting to see what it's going to be and what they have. And so there's no doubt, but at some point I'll be back in Australia. If it's not on tour, I'll be back because of the connection. Because I would imagine Michael will end up living his life in Australia. Because Sarah, although from of Greek family, they're all in Australia. So, and most in Melbourne. So there's a good connection with there now too.
Well, Daniel, I'd be looking forward to, and congratulations to Michael and Sarah before in advance. It hasn't happened
Yeah,
yet, but we'll keep a watch on that. Daniel, it's absolute pleasure to talk to you. I hope you come back on and we'll stay in touch. And I
thank
know
you.
Michael Lyons will be very proud. Well, we all are. And I thank you for the time. And we'll put at the end of the show all the details. And if you want to listen to Daniel's music, you won't be able to stop. Isn't that right, Daniel?
Well,
It's
thanks
addictive.
very much, Martin. And of course, as we mentioned, Michael was a great friend and a great help for me. Once I went and I met Michael, he was in my corner all the time promoting and so that's I mean I'm going to let you go, but that's
No,
another
no.
thing that I've been very lucky with, Martin, is that people that came into my circle were very supportive of me, you know and people like Michael, and there's countless people in different parts of the world that really helped me. And Michael, there was none of them better than Michael. He was tremendous, but a lot of people. So I'm very, very fortunate and grateful. And thanks a million for the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, Daniel, if I can just finish off with what you said with Michael was he had the utmost respect for you, and he did radio. He learned from stuff from you, but I think it's lovely that he got us in contact with each other. That's why I'm sure you'll
Yeah,
agree. We'll dedicate this episode to Michael um, for what we've talked about. He would have been so proud. He left me all the notes to do this, and he said, "Now it's up to you."
I
So
know.
I hope I did
Well,
all
I
my.
hope I hope you've did all he said, because if you didn't, I'm sure you'll get a sign from somewhere.
Oh no, he does that. He's still sitting on my shoulder. He's
Yes,
a lovely man like yourself,
yes.
just genuine. I love that.
Well, greetings to Celine and the family as well. Just all of the extended family too. As we finish off this.
And you make sure that you say hello to Magilla and yourself and tell her keep up the good work what you're doing, especially on the breast cancer. If she ever wants to do a show on that, I'd be more than happy to do it.
Thank you.
But for today, Daniel, it's absolutely lovely. And for our listeners, please go to moralinjuryinternational.com or Life Stories at Marty to watch this podcast with our special guest, Daniel O'Donnell. Daniel, it's been a pleasure.
Lovely.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much.
million. God
See you,
bless.
Daniel. Bye bye.